They have not texted back in 2 hours. You have checked your phone 4 times. You know rationally that they are probably just busy. You know this because you are a reasonable person who understands how life works. But something underneath the rational understanding is not listening to reason. Something underneath is already running scenarios. Did I say something wrong last night? Are they pulling away? Is this how it starts? And so you type a message, and then you delete it, and then you type it again, and then you put the phone down, and then you pick it up. And all of this over 2 hours of silence from someone who loves you. If that feeling is familiar, if you have spent time in that specific kind of waiting, that specific kind of fear that has nothing to do with the actual situation in front of you and everything to do with something much older, this video is for you. Not because something is wrong with you, because something happened to you a long time ago, and your nervous system has never fully been given permission to forget it. In the next few minutes, we are going to talk about why you love the way you love, and why the fear that lives inside the love is not a character flaw. It is a survival strategy that is long overdue for an update. Psychologists John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth spent decades studying how the bonds we form in our earliest years become the blueprint for how we love, trust, and experience intimacy as adults. What they found was that children who receive inconsistent caregiving, love that is sometimes warm and overflowing and sometimes withdrawn without explanation, develop a specific relationship with closeness. They learn that affection is not guaranteed, that connection requires effort to maintain, that the safe thing to do is to hold on tighter, cry a little louder, stay a little closer, because the moment you relax your grip, the love might slip away. Psychologists call this anxious attachment, and research suggests that nearly 1 in 5 adults carries this pattern into their relationships, not as a choice, not as a personality defect, but as a learned response to an early environment where love felt like something that had to be earned, maintained, and vigilantly protected. The anxious attachment style is not about being dramatic. It is not about being needy or clingy or difficult. It is about a nervous system that was trained very early to treat love as something fragile, something that requires constant tending, something that could vanish without warning. And that training does not stop when childhood ends. It simply finds new situations to apply itself to. Children are biologically wired to seek safety and comfort from their caregivers. When those caregivers respond consistently, a secure base forms. The child learns that love is reliable, that it will be there when needed, that it does not have to be earned or performed or protected. But when responses are unpredictable, sometimes warm, sometimes withdrawn, sometimes present, and sometimes emotionally unavailable without explanation, the child learns something different. They learn that love is uncertain, that you have to work to keep it close, that the safe thing is to never fully relax into it. Their nervous system becomes finely tuned to every subtle shift in mood, every small change in tone, every sign of potential disconnection. This hypervigilance is adaptive for the child. It helps them hold on to love in an uncertain world. But in adulthood, it becomes a constant source of anxiety, because the nervous system cannot tell the difference between a parent who might emotionally withdraw and a partner who is just busy at work. It cannot distinguish between childhood uncertainty and adult safety. It only knows what it was trained to do. Watch for the signs. Tighten your grip. Do whatever it takes to keep the connection from breaking. And the tragic irony of this is something we need to name directly. The very strategies that once helped you hold on to love now often push it away. Here is the loop that most people with anxious attachment know intimately but have never had described to them clearly. Fear arrives first, usually triggered by something small. A delayed text, a distracted conversation, a moment of distance that would barely register for someone else. But for your nervous system, it registers as a signal. Something is wrong. They are pulling away. And so you respond to that fear with the only strategy you have. You cling, you reach for reassurance, you ask questions designed to confirm that you are still loved. You become more present, more attentive, more invested, trying to close the gap you can feel opening. And here is where the cruelty lives. The more you cling, the more the other person feels the weight of your need. The more they feel that weight, the more they instinctively create space. And the more space they create, the more your fear confirms itself. See, the distance is real. I knew it. Fear intensifies, clinging intensifies, distance intensifies, and the cycle tightens. Not because you're too much, but because you are responding to a threat your nervous system believes is real, based on evidence that stopped being current a very long time ago. But here's the part that most people with anxious attachment never get told. The love you feel is not the problem. The intensity of your need for connection is not the problem. The capacity to care this deeply, to feel this fully, to want closeness this genuinely, that is actually one of the rarest things a person can bring to a relationship. The problem is what fear has done to that capacity. And once you understand exactly what fear has layered on top of your love, something begins to shift. Underneath every anxious attachment behavior is a belief so old and so deep that most people have never examined it directly. The belief is this: love is conditional, not consciously, not as a thought you would endorse if someone said it out loud, but as an operating assumption that runs underneath everything. The assumption that love stays only if you earn it, that closeness is maintained only if you perform it correctly, that the moment you stop being easy, stop being available, stop being exactly what someone needs, the love will leave. This belief was built in an environment where something about that was true, where love did sometimes disappear when you needed it, where closeness was inconsistent enough that vigilance made sense. But you are not in that environment anymore. You are in adult relationships with people who chose you, who came back, who are still here, and yet the old belief keeps running. It keeps interpreting the present through the lens of the past. It keeps treating adult love as if it were the unpredictable love of childhood. And it keeps generating the fear that drives the behaviors that create the very outcomes you are most afraid of. Psychologists call this a core schema, a foundational belief about how love works that was formed so early and reinforced so consistently that it feels less like a belief and more like the truth. But it is not the truth. It is a map drawn from an old territory, and the territory has changed. Here is what gets lost in conversations about anxious attachment. The capacity that drives all of this fear is not a weakness, it is actually extraordinary. People with anxious attachment love with an intensity that most people never reach. They notice things in their partners that others miss entirely. The slight tension behind a smile, the way someone's energy changes when they are struggling, the small moments of disconnection before they become large ones. This attunement, this sensitivity to the emotional weather of a relationship is genuinely rare. And when it is not being driven by fear, when it is grounded in security rather than anxiety, it produces the kind of love that people describe as being truly seen, truly known, truly cared for in a way that goes beyond the surface. The work is not to become less sensitive. The work is not to stop caring so much. The work is to separate the love from the fear that has grown up around it. Because the love was never the problem. The fear was. And fear, unlike love, can be worked with. Fear can be examined. Fear can be updated. Fear can be gradually, carefully taught that it is safe to rest. The first thing that changes things is recognition, not just knowing intellectually that you have anxious attachment, but catching the pattern in real time. When the fear arrives, when you feel the urge to reach for your phone, to send the message, to seek the reassurance, pausing long enough to name it. This is my attachment system. This is old fear responding to a current situation. This is not necessarily what is actually happening. That pause, that moment of naming, does not make the fear disappear, but it creates a small space between the feeling and the behavior. And in that space, a different choice becomes possible. The second thing is learning to give yourself what you are reaching outward for. People with anxious attachment are often extraordinarily good at reassuring others. They know exactly what to say to someone who is scared, exactly how to make someone feel less alone. The work is to turn that skill inward, to be the steady voice for yourself that your nervous system is searching for in other people. I am not going anywhere. You are safe. This silence is not rejection. You have survived uncertainty before. You will survive this one too. These are not lies to tell yourself. They are often simply true. And the more often you offer them to yourself before reaching outward for them, the more your nervous system begins to learn a new lesson. Safety is available from within, not only from outside. The third thing is accumulated experience. Every time love stays through conflict, every time space does not mean abandonment, every time you survive a moment of disconnection and find the connection still there on the other side, your nervous system receives new data. Love can be stable. Disagreements do not always mean the end. Distance is not always desertion. This does not happen quickly. The nervous system heals through repetition, not revelation, but it does heal. And each corrective experience loosens the grip of the old belief a little more. If you have spent years being told you are too much, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not too much. You are in relationships or environments that were not enough to meet you where you were. There is a profound difference. The longing for closeness that drives anxious attachment is not a flaw. It is evidence of your capacity for love, your sensitivity to human connection, your deep understanding of what it means to need and to be needed. These are not things to fix. They are things to anchor in safety rather than fear. Because what happens when someone with anxious attachment learns to trust, even imperfectly, even gradually, is something genuinely beautiful. The clinging transforms into presence. The fear transforms into attentiveness. The constant vigilance for signs of loss transforms into a profound appreciation for the love that is actually here. And the question stops being, will they stay? And becomes something quieter and more honest. Am I here? Am I present? Am I receiving what is actually being offered? That shift does not happen all at once. It happens in small moments, in pauses before reaching for the phone, in choosing to offer yourself the reassurance before seeking it elsewhere, in surviving a moment of distance and noticing that you are still intact on the other side. But it happens. And as it does, the love that was once driven by fear becomes the love that is offered from steadiness. And that love, grounded and generous and no longer desperate, is the fullest expression of everything you were always capable of. If any part of this felt like someone finally naming something you have been living with for a long time, leave a comment below. You do not have to explain yourself. Just say, "This is me," and I will know exactly where you are. And if someone in your life loves deeply but seems to always be afraid of losing it, send this to them. Not with a message, just send it. Sometimes being finally understood is the first step towards finally feeling safe. Take care of yourself. I will see you in the next one.